Hi, I'm Khalid Al Zaroni, Future Foresight Team Leader at Dubai Customs, and I'll be discussing innovation challenges on the Purple Podcast.
Hi everyone, I'm Neil Ford, the host of the Purple Podcast by Jellify, where we focus and dive into the world of corporate innovation. Our mission is to bring you the insights, experiences, and lessons learned from industry leaders just like yourself. Today, I'm really glad to be joined by Khalid Al Zaroni, who's the Future Foresight Leader at Dubai Customs. Khalid, firstly, welcome. Thanks for joining us.
Thank you for having me.
Tell me, what does a Future Foresight Leader at Dubai Customs do?
Well, Future Foresight is a new discipline now that's being pushed by the Dubai government to help organizations truly shape the future. And Future Foresight is actually a scientific method where we go through a bunch of steps and discover the latest trends and technologies, the mega trends, the signals. We build scenarios based on that. And based on those scenarios, we pick our preferred futures or our least preferred futures and either prepare for that or bring them closer, the preferred ones. So it's really a way to shape the future and implement innovations or policies or strategies, whatever the case may be, now.
How far into the future is that foresight?
Well, 10 years plus into the future is considered a foresight practice.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, must be super interesting.
It is.
Should we be worried about what's coming or excited?
The trends so far point to optimistic, I would say. Yeah.
Excellent. So the theme of our podcast around innovation is focused predominantly on the challenges around experimentation, learning from that. We have a hypothesis basically that you need to struggle, you need to challenge yourselves, you need to not succeed across certain elements or processes within innovation. Yeah. I don't think if you're succeeding all the time, you're probably not really innovating. And I would imagine for you guys at Dubai Customs, the stakes are even higher from a security perspective, from a technology point of view. So I would love to dive right in. I would love to hear from you about maybe a personal example or a company example that you can share with us around maybe where you've struggled around that innovation process, where experimentation hasn't gone quite right.
Yeah, that's a great question. Before I was a foresight leader, I was an innovation specialist and the main innovation advocate for the organization, both locally and globally. So I was deeply embedded in our innovation culture. And we truly embrace the struggle, the challenge, because it's a critical part of the innovation process. If you don't learn from mistakes and failures, you can't truly innovate, as you said. And we care a lot about motivation as well, about motivating our employees to continue to strive. It's also part of our culture here in the UAE and part of our religion as well. Struggling is something important because it develops you as a person. So when it comes to innovation, it's very important to learn from the mistakes. And there was this one particular innovation, or let's say trial, that we went through. And it was truly a great idea. And it was expected to transform customs operations, inspections particularly. And the people behind the idea were truly professional. They were experts. They were creative. And we said, why don't we experiment with a type of wearable technology? I can't go deep into the details, but you'll understand the picture, where we would give our inspectors this wearable technology so they could use it in their inspection procedures, in their inspection operations. And it was a way for them to gather the information they need, collect the intel that's needed to conduct their tasks, all into this small wearable technology. And everything behind it was great. The business case was done, the creativity was there, the technology was the latest, and we created a prototype. And when it came time to roll it out, it was completely rejected by the inspectors. And
what was their reason?
They couldn't accept it. They didn't want to wear it. Okay. They didn't want to wear it. They weren't comfortable wearing it. And they're like, this is great, guys, but we're not going to use this thing, okay? And this highlighted something very, very important in the innovation process. And people in the innovation field, such as yourself, would understand what design thinking is.
Yep.
It's really important, especially when you're creating a product for an end user. And to involve that end user from the beginning would be ideal.
Yeah.
We didn't involve our inspectors.
Yeah.
We didn't actually test it on them first to see if this is something that they would accept. We just went ahead and did it. We're like, this is great.
You assumed that they're going to love it.
Assumption, exactly.
Yeah.
And like I said, everything behind it was amazing. The technology was there. The studies were done very well, but we didn't involve them in the beginning. And it's important to get the end user's feedback,
Yeah.
right? Whether it's a customer or a client or even more importantly, your employee. And we didn't involve them.
So what was it? What was their reason for not wanting to wear it? Was it uncomfortable? Was it too big?
It was uncomfortable.
Intrusive?
It was uncomfortable. And they said, we're out there working in the heat, okay? And you want us to wear this thing? And we're out there, situational awareness. We need to be fully aware. We can't have this thing covering our vision.
Yeah.
Okay. Even though it's going to provide us with good data and good intel, we can't just use it and focus on other things at the same time. And it's difficult to kind of interact with it, to interface with it. Yeah.
I'm curious because some companies would have mandated it and said, no, you've got to wear it, but you didn't think that was a pathway to go down for customs?
We didn't do that at least, right?
Yeah.
We didn't force it upon them.
Yeah.
We still wanted to roll it out and see what they think, but it's important to involve them in the beginning because one of the best things to do when you're failing, okay, is to fail early, fast, and cheap, right? So by involving them in the beginning, they could have given us completely different kind of feedback and said, you know what, we don't think this is going to work out for us. Maybe you should look here.
How long were you into the journey when this was deployed? Like how long had this been in ideation, in development, in prototyping, and then
about 6 months.
Oh wow!
About 6 months, and it actually won an award. There are certain organizations around the world that recognize ideas, not innovations, just ideas that are creative.
Yeah,
and we actually participated in the UK. An organization called Ideas UK, and they loved the idea. But even they, at the end, were like, okay, let's see how your end users think about this.
Yeah. I'm interested. Could you, in that scenario, does it end there, or do you take that information and then think about, well, maybe if we repackage this, if we white label it, if we make it ergonomically different, like is it still there kind of simmering around somewhere?
Yes, it is, and we definitely learned from that. Okay, so that was way back in the day, maybe 7 years ago. Okay, and it informed our future innovation efforts. We're like, okay, we're going to take this seriously, involving the end user, whether it's a client or a customer or an employee, right from the beginning. We're going to innovate together. We're going to co-create things together.
Nice.
Right? And it didn't advance later into another wearable type because we knew wearables are not accepted by our inspectors because especially in the summer heat, and they're out there, doing their thing. It's going to be difficult for them to put on these things. But it actually developed into kind of an app.
Okay.
And they use this app it has image analysis software.
Yeah.
Okay. And it kind of, helps us detect things. So it kind of morphed into that.
Yeah.
But from then on, we decided we need to involve the client, the end user, and so on in the beginning. And we have something called the Dubai Consultative Council, Dubai Customs Consultative Council. It's unique to a customs organization where every quarter we bring our clients, because we're mainly business to business when it comes to our dealings. And we said, okay, let's get all our partners, all our clients in a quarterly meeting. And whenever we have a new customs policy or a new direction that we want to go, let's get their feedback first. Let's see what they think of this. Maybe they can help come up with ideas. There are parts of these meetings that can be brainstorming sessions as well.
Yeah.
So that's been very successful.
I love the idea that this is something that has come out of what was a simple initiative back in the day. Great. It didn't work, but the learnings from that have then mutated or created this new approach to thinking about how you innovate and what makes sense in a co-creation environment.
Yeah, we learned a lot.
Yeah. Excellent. So you mentioned design thinking and that concept of learning and iterating and failing fast, which is something that we hear a lot of in region, but it's very difficult for companies to actually implement. Do you feel you're able to do that now in a true fashion?
Absolutely. And the faster and cheaper that you fail, you don't have to always develop this advanced prototype. It could be something really simple at the start. And there are many types of prototypes. On paper, and we have a lot of tools now. 3D graphic tools and so on. You can just try it out. In the virtual world.
Yeah.
Okay. Before you actually start spending and involving, resources, test it out somewhere first. Bring in the client or the end user or the employee from the start. See how he feels about it.
Yeah.
Show him the blueprints, right? So yeah, we learned a lot from that.
I love the fact that this is a government entity who's taking this approach. Do you see this kind of taking hold across Dubai, across government approaches as well?
Yes. Many of our sister organizations, our brother organizations in the government, they do things well as well. And this is because of the Executive Council. Mm-hmm. They do a lot of great work when it comes to encouraging and coaching the government organizations, and they're doing a great job. The Dubai Future Foundation now has come in as well to assist in the foresight type of efforts, and expect great things to come from the government.
Was it like a light bulb moment that said, we should have involved these guys from the start? Or was it something along the way that you were kind of worried about intuitively? Or is it just something that kind of like from a process point of view, it was like, oh, we've missed a trick here? Like it must have been frustrating at the time.
It's actually a bit of both, the first two things you mentioned. It was a little bit of a light bulb moment, but at the same time, we did have this thought in the back of our minds. Yeah. We're like, we didn't really test this.
Little nagging. Yeah.
And, those two things came together, and it was this light bulb moment. We're like, you know what? Okay, this is actually how we're supposed to do things properly, even though we've had many successful innovations before. But it was just this one because it was so personal to the end user, something that they're going to wear, something that they're going to use.
Yeah.
So you really have to bring him in from the start.
Yeah. So if I was to turn around and speak to young Khalid and say, Khalid, if you had your time again, maybe what are 3 things that you could take away around this approach that would allow you to innovate maybe better moving forward? And I think we've kind of touched on it already, but if you could go back to your young self before this initiative started, before you're doing what you're doing, what would be the 3 things that you could
well,
highlight?
Again, I definitely tell myself to, hey, get those inspectors in the room.
Get the customers.
Yeah, get the end user in the room, right? Get him in the room, see what he thinks about it. And next would be, don't be afraid to fail, right? It's part of the process.
Yeah.
Okay. It's about how you fail. If you fail strong and hard, that could have implications later on. But if you start things early, if you try to keep your eyes open and how to pick up things, pick up cues, along the process, be aware, but still don't have that fear. Okay. Innovation is about bravery in the end. It's about courage. You have to not be afraid to test things out. Okay, if you build the right environment for testing, where you don't really spend too much, whether it's time, resources, people, then go ahead. It's okay to fail. And the third thing I would say is you have to learn. You have to learn from your shortcomings, your mistakes, because if you just brush it along, you're bound to fail again. You're bound to make that strong mistake that happened before. So learn.
I'm interested in that second. I mean, all 3 points are 100% valid, and I agree wholeheartedly. The second point you talk about, I guess, what is the concept of acceptance of failure or psychological safety in an organization to allow failure to happen. That's a difficult thing sometimes for organizations to do, though, right? Because every initiative that you spend money on has a return on investment, and the ability to accept that something may not work is a difficult hurdle to bridge. How can companies, in your opinion, help allow that concept of failure or experimentation to permeate so that it's not looked at negatively?
Yeah, that's a great question and a very important question. And it goes back to the culture, right? How the corporation or the organization has built its innovation culture. It's important to be motivational. So 2 major parts of that is empowering your people and having the leadership beliefs, particularly in like government style corporations. If the leadership doesn't have the belief in innovation, then they will be afraid to experiment. They'll be afraid to invest. Okay, and if the people are not involved, they don't have that empowerment where they can be part of the process. Whatever it is, if it's a bunch of brainstorming events throughout the year, or if you have a good innovation management system, idea management system, you have to have your people involved. So the people have to be empowered, and the leadership have to believe. And then you'll ask, okay, how do I get the leadership to believe? All right, you're going to have to show them some kind of impact, some kind of ROI. Management likes to see ROI.
Yeah.
So if you show them certain examples, or one of the best ways that we've done to make our leaders believe is to show them the impact of small ideas and how they eventually made that huge impact. And some of them became truly game-changing innovations.
Yeah.
And they're like, oh, okay, so if a small idea comes along, a low-grade employee comes up with the small idea, he's not going to brush it off easily, because he knows now in the back of his mind, okay, I've seen the impact of these small ideas. I'm not going to, let them go that easily, or I'm not going to reject them that easily, because this might turn out to be something, huge, impactful.
So there's a real top-down and bottom-up approach to creating that right environment.
It is the best way to do things, to have a mix of both.
I'm super interested in, now that you've kind of established the concept of failure, or the concept of challenges and iteration is really important. How do you then link that these days to what you do with Dubai Customs from a Foresight's perspective all the way through the idea life cycle?
Right. Well, they're both intimately linked. And briefly, the Foresight process involves 4 steps, very, very briefly. You start with the scoping phase, where you identify the focal issue that you want to focus on. For example, a round of foresight that you want to do, or a report. Then you start one of the most exciting phases, which is scanning. You go into the world, the external environment, and start looking for the latest trends across all factors, social, political, economical, and so on. And you look for the latest trends. What's going on? How are consumers thinking? What's the latest technologies? What's the latest economic developments, political developments, and so on and so on. So once you have all that data in the scanning phase, you move on to the scenarios. Based on all that data, you start imagining scenarios of the future. Okay, you can build as many as you want, and there's many tools and methods. So you start envisioning these scenarios, and you pick the ones that you want to bring now, the preferred futures, as they're called. Or you can look at the least preferred futures, the ones that you want to avoid. So after the scenario phase comes the strategic planning phase. And here you start addressing all these things that you built in your story of the scenarios. You start addressing them one by one. It could be something innovative. It could be a new policy even, or a new strategy, a new business model. So the scanning phase and the scenario phase also has embedded within it a way to move around failures, because you're identifying things that you should not do. You're identifying things that you want to stay away from in the future. So you're kind of helping that, cushion the failure if it does happen, because you're kind of aware of these trends from the start. So when you start building the innovations, start addressing the implications of the scenarios that you built, you have that in the back of your mind. Okay, I'm not going to do it this way because in the future this might happen. Because each scenario has a whole narrative to it. It has a whole story to it. And you identify all these variables and uncertainties. So when you come to address them, you're like, okay, I know some of these things might occur. We're not predicting the future.
Yeah.
Because foresight is not prediction.
Yeah.
It's anticipation. Okay, you're kind of looking ahead and seeing, okay, this might occur. I'll prepare for it if it does happen. This world looks good, so I'll start innovating now, to get to that future. And this goes back to, actually, His Highness Sheikh Mohammed bin Rashid. He launched 10X in 2017.
Yeah.
And 10X is a foresight process.
Yeah.
He said, I want you all to start bringing the innovations of the future and start doing them now. The ones that are 10 years ahead, that's why it's called 10X, start implementing them now. And thankfully, Dubai Customs, in addition to learning from our failures and from the innovations that didn't really work out, and now with the foresight practice, the scientific method of shaping the future, combining those together is very, very powerful.
So I'm curious, and are you driving trends then? Or are you on the recipient end of trends and analysis, or is it a mixture of both?
It's a mixture of both, because it's good to be a trendsetter.
Yeah.
And Dubai Customs is a trendsetter. Okay, in the customs world, we do pioneer things. We do set trends, And this is attested, of course, in the World Customs Organization, the one who combines all customs around the world. And it comes mainly from our vision. Our vision is to be the leading customs administration in the world.
Yeah.
Okay, and we have a bunch of values and missions. Part of them is innovation, agility, disruption, and so on. So yeah, we do want to disrupt sometimes.
And are you then working, I guess, because if you're driving and looking at that from a foresight perspective up to 10 years in advance, I'm assuming you're working with externals as well from, say, the startup ecosystem.
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. This is another major element when it comes to innovation as well.
Yeah.
Collaboration.
But I'm curious because within that, if you're looking that far in advance, some of the startups you're going to be working with are probably fairly early stage or nascent technology. I assume within that process, there's a margin for error or a margin for failure around
Very
those as
good
well.
question. You see, the foresight process, by its very nature, is a circular and modular process. So if you're conducting one round of, let's say, a foresight report, you can always go back to the previous stages and adjust. So for example, like you said, if a startup or a technology is no longer, it's being redundant, okay? You can easily go back to the scanning phase where you identify all the trends and technologies and just make those changes. It will eventually affect your scenarios. Because remember, our scenarios are built on the scanning, all the data that we collected. So if we input those changes in the step before, we can build new scenarios. And we can keep doing that, back and forth. It's a continuous circular process.
Are you creating your own startups?
We are actually partnering with some startups. Okay. Yeah.
Okay. I was curious because if from a technology perspective, maybe you were moving into the venture building side of things as well and creating.
It is something we've talked about. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Because there's value there to be had for sure. Yeah.
Okay. Khalid, I won't dig too much more into the intricacies of Dubai Customs. I'm aware that there's probably things that you can and can't say. Suffice to say, that was super interesting. I loved kind of the fact that from this one failure or this one challenge that you had, a whole kind of industry or understanding of the process and an ecosystem has spawned. I look forward to seeing what happens from a Dubai Customs perspective moving forward. I'll follow you as well in terms of your journey and as a trendsetter. But thank you very much for joining us today. That was super insightful.
My pleasure. Thank you for having me.